I'm the CTO for Project Liberty Labs. My focus is on the building of the Frequency blockchain and the services that surround it. We have a ecosystem that we're trying to construct, so there's a lot of pieces and parts that go into that. And we've been really focused initially on the blockchain build out, and we realized that once we got the sort of 1.0 version of Frequency, the amount of services and SDKs and pieces that were required actually dwarfed the blockchain work. So it's been an interesting journey over the last couple of years from the time we started building the chain. Braxton and I, in 2006, were co-founders of a social network. It was called Xanil, and it did not succeed, which is why no one's heard of it. We were based in San Francisco, actually, in South Park, near Twitter. We did have a very front row seat to a lot of social networking, and it was very interesting how things were in the early days and how they changed. I don't know if you remember the articles and pundits back in 2007, 2008 talking about Twitter as the new pipes of the internet. Because they had this open API, all of these third-party applications and all these interesting utilities were being built around them. And at some point, they decided that they needed a business model. And they bought one of those third-party apps, made it the Twitter first-party app, and then started closing down API access till the point, obviously, today where there's no API access practically at all. But that openness, and there was such an excitement and such an energy around it. In the same sort of way, Facebook back in 2006, 2007 timeframe had all of these apps that you could install on your wall. I started using Goodreads. I could install a Goodreads plugin and see what my friends were reading, right? Like the use of the social graph as a utility versus just as a end state application or just for communicating with each other. All these other things you could do with it seemed like it had such promise. But once again, pivoted away, gatekeepers, and all of that got shut down. But a big portion of what got me excited about doing this project when Braxton and I were first talking with Frank was the idea of bringing that kind of concept back, the idea of the social graph as a layer on the internet versus just being a feature of a particular platform. I feel like social networking's really been sort of stuck in a rut in a lot of ways. There's very little innovation that happens. Every few years, you'll see someone that kind of breaks through the critical threshold of users and the network cold start problem, and then every other major player will just adopt the same feature sets. You have to hit a certain relatively large number of users in order for anybody in that new application to receive utility. By moving the social graph out of the platform as to a separate layer, the first person that goes with a portable social graph, the first person that goes to a new innovative app can get value because they can bring their graph with them. And that's what we're trying to achieve, is this idea of users being in control of that data set and truly being able to kind of control how their data is used. And when we talk about that, it feels, most folks take it as like kind of a self-empowerment thing, and that's important, but it's also this utility thing. It's also this thing where I can actually get value by using a new application, even if I'm the first one there, because I bring my graph with me. Other folks that I interact with can see what I'm doing, can choose to partake as well, and can get that value.
My first startup was an analytics company. We had the full Twitter fire hose, and at the time, I remember it felt like watching all of humanity building this new type of bridge, our social connections, the social graph. When we got really into real-time analytics and processing the Twitter fire hose and integrating with Facebook, it became vivid to me, like the architecture of how humans connect digitally and how powerful that is, but it was privately owned. And I knew inherently that's not right. Those relationships, you could see them in the data being built between humans, but the data around that was all owned by these platforms. And if you look at all the big tech companies which have the highest market caps in history, you go down the line and you realize it's huge databases behind it, right? Amazon has the world's largest database of consumer reviews of products. That's social data. So it's not just social media, it's any kind of social data. These huge databases that have been compiled that are actually constructed largely by humanity, but then they're owned by a few people. That's really where I see the problem. And I feel like it should be a natural resource like water or wind power. And if we could actually harness it for the broader good as opposed to it being harnessed to enrich like a narrower set of people. And we didn't realize at the time was that the network effects are so powerful that those databases were very much winner take all. Any site around video, which was YouTube, just dominates. So it's not about a vertical of this or that. It's whoever wins kind of the network effects around video wins all video. And the same thing with all pictures for Instagram, right, et cetera. And so those network effects, I don't think anybody realized how powerful they would be. Once that emerged, then people that were originally building sites or apps, they actually were building platforms. And so the real challenge here was that the platforms are so powerful. When it came time to monetize that all that activity, obviously the surveillance economy emerged from that. They should be building applications or services, but not platforms. Platforms should be more decentralized and not controlled by individuals, because that's equivalent to kind of controlling a state, like a virtual digital state, right? And you want people to have businesses in the town, but you don't want them to own the town.
Almost everything you look at, if it's like a hosting service or a platform like a Facebook or something, there's always this strong incentive as you aggregate social data. The data's value has network effects as well. The more of it you have, the more valuable it is in a non-linear sort of fashion. So even folks that start out saying, oh, we're just aggregating this data, we're not actually using it directly, they start with sort of anonymous reporting on top of it. And then they start doing anonymized individualized reporting. And then they start just selling it to advertisers directly. It's so valuable that it's difficult to sort of hold back and not see it end up being monetized and closed off and gatekeeped over and over and over again. You can see this from history of MySpace to Facebook to Twitter to Snapchat. The same sort of pattern repeats itself over and over again. So we said, how can you do something different with this data? And the only thing that we could really see where a user could truly be in control of their own data set were consensus system, blockchain systems. The blockchain doesn't care about your social data specifically. The rules are the rules, and they can't just be changed because someone sees value there, right? Like the way the consensus systems work, you can be assured that, if the contract is the contract today, the contract is the contract tomorrow as well. If you want to look at how users can have a portable social graph and how they can sort of share content with their friends and be sort of in control of this data set, you need a common protocol if you really want that to happen. If you want a bunch of apps to be able to work together, a protocol. The early days of the web were defined by the protocols that existed.
Okay, we have a protocol that connects the world's computers, TCP/IP. We had then connected the world's data with HTTP on top, but there needs to be a protocol to connect the world's people, and that's really DSNP.
The Decentralized Social Networking Protocol. We started in January, and in October and November of 2020, we released the white paper for DSNP, and it defined a core set of actions and a common set of nouns that you could act on for social networking. So social identity, delegation, social graph, and content as some of the key nouns. And then the verbs, the ability for you to connect with another user, the ability to make a delegation or also revoke that delegation from an application. And then from there, we started working on actual test implementations of it to verify, did this protocol actually make sense? Did it actually hold up when you tried to use it? Once we developed the DSNP white paper, we did a prototype on Ethereum. And we learned a lot from actually implementing the protocol and having sort of a concrete implementation. And the number one thing we learned is Ethereum is very, very expensive for social. Social has a very, very price-conscious sort of economic model. It's valuable in its aggregate, but it's very difficult to even put a value on the individual post of my breakfast that I posted online or something like that. But when you take the aggregate of that communication, it's in some ways, the value of all human communication, which is gigantic. So you need to have this like low cost, high volume sort of model that you can work with. So we went through a set of prototypes and learned a bunch, and then we decided we really needed to do a blockchain search, if you will. We delved in pretty deep at an engineering level on 30 different chains and chain ecosystems. What we ended up on, the Polkadot ecosystem, was there were like a few key attributes that were very interesting to us. One, the parachain model allowed us to specifically customize what we were doing to the problems that we were trying to solve, even at the chain level. It wasn't just smart contract running on top of a chain. We could actually make the chain be optimized for social. It also had this concept of what I like to call fixed price consensus. They had a parachain lease model. It meant that the pricing had very little volatility. You could predict what the pricing was. And we felt like if you have like folks building serious applications in social and wanting to scale, you have to have really good price predictability, not just low cost, but also predictable cost. Once we sort of narrowed the field and ended up in the Polkadot ecosystem, that's when frequency started to show up.
Our first point was we want to not have any tokenomics tied to the core DSNP protocol. That's really critical because we thought, once again, shouldn't tie our humanities relationships to a particular share price or token price. But then what we concluded was what you would want to tie value to is operating the network. So the data layer itself should be part of this core network that nobody owns, a public resource like wind or solar. But then when you actually operate the network, that requires resources. So that's where we thought the frequency token comes into play.
One of the things we're really excited about from a Agile Coretime standpoint is we've always been worried frequency connected to the relay chain might run out of capacity, right? It might actually overwhelm the sort of slot that it had won for an auction. And Agile Coretime introduces this ability for parachains to actually sort of have multiple slots on the relay chain if they end up needing them. And I think that is a real sort of pressure relief valve for us as we continue to scale to know that that's there. I think that some of the work that's being done on JAM as well has real direct implications on us, but we're still trying to work through the sort of pluses and minuses of the detail there from the gray paper that came out, just a few months ago. So we're very excited where our roadmap is going. Polkadot is introducing a lot that we really feel like we can use as well. So it feels like a thing that there's a lot of potential for in the future. A big aspect conceptually that I think is interesting to disaggregate from the blockchain and crypto economic world is there's a couple of key components there, and I think that you can look at them individually and see separate values to them, and obviously compose them together and get additional value. But like one of them is this idea of folks controlling their data sets, whether it's coins or social data or games or whatever the case may be, because they have a Web3 wallet and keys, right? They're in control of that data. And I think that gets mixed up with the sort of like management of tokens as well, because those keys allow you to also manage your tokens, which is, a whole economic system. But focusing on that piece of it, there's an awful lot of value you can bring just giving people keys that allow them to directly control their data sets. And one of the key principles in the Coinless users is that they have that, but don't necessarily have tokens. Now, a big aspect of any blockchain is gas fees, right? Like transaction costs. Cost shifting is a real thing, like you can't get rid of the transaction fees. Fundamentally, consensus systems have certain types of costs. But what you can do is construct systems where different people can pay for them in different sort of scenarios. So Ethereum has paymasters they've come up with as part of their autonomous accounts. We have a mechanism called delegation that allows users to grant certain types of permissions to applications on their behalf. And this does two things. One, it allows users to not have the user experience of constantly signing every individual interaction they do with the chain. They're able to delegate those activities, and applications can sign on their behalf. The user always retains the ability to revoke those permissions as well from the application. But what that does is not only give them a better user experience, it also gives you an avenue for someone else to pay for the costs. Now, there's been a lot of sort of Web3 purists that have been concerned about this kind of delegation model, and more specifically, someone else paying for the cost of transactions. So like the only reason that you would pay for a cost of transactions is because you're bringing back the advertising models and surveillance economics. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. The key thing is that you're moving the business model from one where the user has to interact with exchanges and chains to acquire tokens to then go work with applications to be able to pay gas fees, to one where the user interacts with the application and the application goes and acquires the tokens for doing so. Even if the user's paying the application, they can be paying them subscription fees. It can be a freemium model. There's many other sort of avenues business logic-wise there versus the user having to be pay-as-you-go for every instance of transaction that they do. So those sorts of models, I think, are like looking at this kind of blending of like the best of Web 2, not necessarily taking all the worst parts, but taking the best of Web 2 and sort of like bringing it to Web 3 and opening up the doors for a lot more users. We're still in the like earliest phase of the early adopters from a percentage of there's over 5 billion people in social networking alone, as an example. That's an order of magnitude more than everybody involved in the kind of crypto and blockchain space. So we had this theory that we needed to, for social, really meet the users where they were. What we saw most other projects that were trying to tackle this space was they were creating new applications, which require users to stop using a thing they're currently using and migrate and start using something different. And we felt like there was real power in actually working with existing applications that had scaled user bases and sort of meeting the users where they were and incrementally introducing them, taking them on this journey. And we had made some announcements about DSNP and some of the work that we were doing with Frequency in July of, I think it was 2021. And Jeffrey Adele, who's the CEO of MeWe, saw those announcements and was like really interested. MeWe is a privacy-focused social network that, obviously existed completely independent of Frequency. They've been around for about 12 years, I think. They have 20 million registered users, a really active user base that build these group-centered communities on different topics of interest that people can talk about. So that's kind of where the genesis of it came. We started talking, and it was like very much a sort of chocolate and peanut butter kind of moment. We were still very early in building Frequency, and they really became sort of our pilot application, if you will. We had decided that we were not going to focus on trying to build our own first-party application for users to interact with. We really wanted to focus on that infrastructure and the idea that users could use many different applications with the same data set. But MeWe was willing to partner with us and really kind of go on that whole sort of early adopter ride from an application perspective and really help us refine the models as we built Frequency to really fit actual user needs. And the first step, we posit the first step in this journey is users getting some form of wallet, getting some form of personal control. So with the MeWe case, they've their users started the migration with identity. So they have their users opt in to sort of move their data to Web3. And what actually happens is it's an experience that's very similar to like a sign in with Facebook or sign in with Google experience. You get you go through a wallet setup process, and then you get prompted to grant certain permissions to MeWe to be able to interact with your data set that's just been put on chain. And this delegation, these permissions, are very similar to the Google's going to share X, Y, and Z data they know about you with the site you're signing into. But one of the interesting things is that there's no intermediary, that there's no Google in there. This is just with the Frequency chain itself effectively that the user is interacting with. So that first step is identity and delegation. And we feel like from there, users can look at things like actually potentially acquiring tokens at some point if they wanted to, getting into staking, interacting with, more esoteric things like, DeFi or other things like that. But like that first step of just getting on the chain doesn't necessarily require tokens. It just requires the ability to control your identity, which gets back to keys and wallets. As we've done the incremental sort of migration with MeWe, they started with identity, and now users are porting their graphs. We have, I think, 900,000 MeWe users have migrated identity and delegation, and there's about 400,000 users have migrated their social graphs onto Frequency to date. Project Liberty bid as to buy TikTok US if that deal actually ends up going through. That's an area where we're all very excited about that possibility. We're looking at like if the TikTok bid went through, that the TikTok users would go on the same sort of journey that the MeWe users have been going on over the last year on as far as onboarding to frequency, those various steps around identity and graph and content, et cetera, as incremental points in that journey.
We're actually actively in talks with other partners to stitch together other protocols. We believe it's going to be, in success, a quilting party, as our analogy of pulling together different protocols to create an alternative to the current world we live in with big tech controlling largely the internet. Right now, we have the mass of human communications happening on private platforms, which means the police force is a private force that's managing all that moderation. I think that if you think about opening up with a protocol, a social layer for the entire internet, where all of our communication is on that kind of decentralized network, then moderation can be handled in many different ways on top of that. And so you have an opportunity to have much more effective moderation. So you can have things like governments or consortiums moderating content by geography, versus one private company moderating content for the entire Western world. You could have specialized groups moderating content in certain domains. So for instance, you could have the World Health Organization moderating health content or things about that in certain contexts. You can have it wide open, and so you can still have, different philosophies around censorship, such that there people could be in places where there's a lot of monitoring and a lot of control for children or for certain cases, and other cases where there's very little control and it's wide open for research and other purposes. So I think it's just important to move that data out of private platforms into this public domain and leverage, all these modern technologies we have with encryption, so it's not just visible to everyone, but it's there and accessible, and then the tools can be applied to better moderate in the right context versus a one-size-fits-all that we have today. Well, I was just drawn in by the ultimate potential of the internet, really, and the web is to connect humans and to foster human collaboration at a global scale, which will unleash all kinds of innovation and progress that we have never seen before. We are seeing that, right? It's not like it's not happening, but I feel like with Web 2 and the kind of platforms that emerged, it's mostly been, that value is mostly captured for a few people, and then of course we've learned that the surveillance economy has driven polarization and spread other deleterious kind of effects that are now threatening our core institutions, democracies, et cetera. So it became clear to me that it's just central to how humans interact, and it's really, we're in a dangerous time, I think, in our history, due to, in large part, to the impacts that this technology is having on our collective cultures. We are seeing this accelerate, right, where you have algorithms that are driving higher and higher engagement and driving more and more polarization and disinformation at scales that were previously unprecedented. So it's a problem that's escalating, that's core to human flourishing, human society. And so felt like if you're going to really address a problem in your lifetime, you look at kind of the time you're born into and what's the problem to solve, and this feels like the problem to solve.
The reason I'm here is to bring that same feeling of openness and that same sort of utility that I saw early in social networking back. I really feel like it's a thing that we've lost, and that it's a thing that I don't just miss. I think everyone wants this sort of implicitly. Every time someone's frustrated that they don't want to use Facebook anymore, but they can't leave because it's how they're connected with their family members, or every time someone's frustrated that the user interface on an app that they really like has changed, but they have to just keep using it because that's the only way that they have to connect with their friends or their colleagues, et cetera. All of those sorts of things are things that I think are implicitly sort of crying out for this utility that we're trying to bring, this social layer to the internet.
And so I think it's important that the core decentralized internet actually connects people, not just the data. And we don't want to leave that connection of people to private platforms, because that's where we get into what we have now, which is an oligarchy operating a surveillance economy.
The human connection that we have is mediated by these online platforms now. And they're being intermediated in ways that are becoming toxic between the surveillance advertising and folks overtly sort of making attacks on them. There's no way with it locked up in these private platforms to do anything about it as an individual user. So we really think that this provides an alternative mechanism to get that utility that folks really crave while avoiding all of these sort of toxic behaviors and, you know, sort of outcomes that we've actually seen. So I think that it's a thing that we came so close to previously and didn't quite achieve. And this is sort of the second bite at the apple, and we're really, really excited about where we are and where things are going, and you know, looking forward to the future where everybody has this capability.
It allows users to remain in control even without coins if they want to revoke access from a particular app. It's all about aligning the incentives at a particular point in time, which is when the user wants to start using the app, both the app and the user have an incentive to make that delegation happen. So the ability to share consensus with other chains actually drastically lowers the overall transaction pricing.